2 minutes will be allotted to each speaker and a maximum of 15 minutes to each subject. Are there any public comments? Okay. Well, there'll be an opportunity again at the end of the meeting. We move forward with the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Thank you, Jen.
Second.
Thank you, Nicola. All in favor? The ayes have it. So now we move to the board chair's report. We just passed the consent agenda. I would like to note on there that the WEA contract was listed. And I would like to thank the WEA and its leadership for a successful completion of the teachers' union negotiation process. With collaboration and good faith, the conclusion was fair and beneficial to both parties. Wilton's teachers are truly exceptional. They are the backbone of our district's success. On behalf of the board, I would like to extend our thanks and gratitude for all they do for our kids. And I would also just like to take a moment to recognize that this is our first meeting since the resignation of Deb. The loss of her experience and expertise and leadership is not lost on me. I take the work and responsibility of a board member and now interim chair very seriously. And as we can see from our current agenda and our future business, we have a lot of critical work and decisions before us, including budget deliberations that start with our next meeting. I ran for the board and base all my decisions on what I think is best for the kids, schools, and community, and I believe that is true for all of us who sit at this table. As we continue to do our work, there may be times where we don't all agree, but it's important to remember that we all have the same good intentions. And now, superintendent's report.
Great, thank you. I have just a ton of good news to share. So first, we want to congratulate our girls field hockey team for earning a trip to the Class L State Championship game. So mark your calendars. That'll take place this Saturday at 2 p.m. at Weathersfield High School. And they're traveling all the way to Weathersfield so they can play Darien. Thank you, CIAC. Yes, and so cross your fingers. Hopefully they'll come home with a championship. They are phenomenal. We also want to give a tip of the cap to our Wilton Theater program for a smashing performance of The Play That Goes Wrong. The students were tremendously funny. The play, if you saw it, was a slapstick comedy. The whole thing just came together beautifully, and both the actors on stage as well as all of the set designers and producers and everybody that participated. The whole thing was timed brilliantly, and it was the first time I left and my face hurt because I had laughed so much. What I thought was, in addition to just how well, I saw the opening performance Thursday night, the play was double casted, and I didn't catch that until I was at home later reading the playbill. And when I talked to Kevin Slater about it, he said, look, we're trying to get as many kids on stage as possible and as many kids involved as we can. And so I thought about the enormity of putting together a play is tremendous, but then double casting it and running it, for 4 days. So they were just amazing, and hopefully we'll be able to see the tape if you didn't get to see it. So moving along, we also want to recognize our high school biology club who presented at a national conference on flatfish biology this past Tuesday up in Westbrook. So students Aiden Bowers, Lucas Katsukis, Josh Zhang, Sean Gregory, and Nandan Raman presented research they conducted this summer on the winter flounder population in Norwalk Harbor. So at the conference were scientists, I guess, from as far away as Alaska, and institutions like the Smithsonian were there. Their study, I understand, is part of a 30-year effort spearheaded by Earth Place Nature Center in Westport, and Jim Lucy, I guess, has been connected with them for a very long time. So congratulations to them. We want to congratulate Wilton High School senior Lucy Beach, who was selected to take part in the National Association for Music Education All-National Honors Ensemble that took place earlier this month in Maryland. So way to go, Lucy. And check this out. So this was a surprise. So we have a Middlebrook 7th grader, Lily Wang, and her brother, do you know this? 4th grader, Andy Wang. They both participated in the Connecticut State Scholastic Chess Championship this past Saturday. Lily won first place in the middle school section and won the state championship for 7th grade. Not to be outdone, her brother Andy won first place and was also crowned state champion for 4th grade. And then Lily and her fellow Middlebrook student, 6th grader Leo Jing, won 3rd place as a team from Middlebrook. So how about that? Congratulations.
Sporting a new trophy.
Right? It's tremendous. And then last but certainly not least, both our high school PTSA and Middlebrook PTA were each awarded $2,500 grants from the National PTA to fund a dialectical behavioral therapy training program for parents. As you know, we offer DBT skills training to our students at both the middle school and the high school, and this grant will enable us to expand the reach and then provide training to those families. So I understand you had a hand in that as well, so thank you, Kim.
Staff as well.
And
Training
yes.
for staff, too.
Yeah, and training for staff.
Yep.
Great. So lots of great news this week. So thank you. That's my report. Oh, no, it's not. I forgot.
Yeah, we have a video.
We're going to take a 4-minute interlude. So, Veterans Day is back in our schools. And so in all of the schools, we do really terrific celebrations. One of the high notes this week was a performance of an original song written by Francesca Gray and a group of middle school students and performed for our veterans. So if you haven't seen this, just get out the tissues. It's amazing. Do you mind?
I'd like to acknowledge to the veterans that this is the first year that we have a Middlebrook songwriting club. The students have written this song for you, and the singers have learned it. I hope you enjoy it. Their advisor is Miss Francesca Gray.
impressive, right? So, original song.
I hate to
Just
follow
10
that.
years ago, Jesus was the best kept secret in the Jewish community. Back then, it was difficult to find anyone who was open to hearing the gospel.
Yeah, there you
There
go.
we go.
YouTube.
So I hate to follow that up with committee reports.
We have none.
Yeah.
We don't have any, policy doesn't, teaching and learning doesn't,
Business,
business?
I do.
You do?
So it's well, we met this morning, and we basically covered Dawn's financial report that you'll see is more reads than I'm gonna give you. So we are not over budget, but there's certain things that are gonna be bubbling up that I think there's some concerns about. One is that there's been an increase in the outplacement, so we're now at $1.6 million over budget, and we're expecting $1.1 million as reimbursement, so we're hoping that that is actually gonna transpire. We're also looking at utilities that are probably gonna be increased fairly severely, like 43% for electricity. The athletic department is struggling to find drivers, since there's a driver shortage, they're struggling to find buses to transport the kids. So they've had to outsource the buses. That's been a higher cost for them as well. But we're still maintaining the budget, but these are things that Dawn, I think, is beginning to worry about that are gonna bubble up. We have applied, we've applied for a grant, and we're
Correct.
supporting the mental health. And we're applying for 3 additional mental health workers in this district. So we'll see if that transpires. We talked a little bit about Ellen Esmond's enrollment and the disparity between the guy we hired and Ellen and, where kindergarten's gonna fall. And I think we're, just trying to struggle that through. We're sort of at 255 for kindergarten next year, and we'll see how that plays out. And then Jeff Pardo is providing a master plan for capital improvements and bids so that the schools in the town have some kind of, long-range plan that I think is a really smart idea, and we probably needed to do that.
Yeah, so the way that'll work is when we're building our budget this year, there'll be a line to engage a consultant to do that work across 3 of the 4 schools. And then if the funding comes through, that would take place over the course of the next year. And then we'd have a good 10-year look at what we need to do for our facilities, and then we can start to prioritize projects within that.
And then the final thing is a real feel-good thing, but I'm going to let Kevin speak to that.
Which feel-good thing was it?
You wanted to do it, so I'm going to let you do it.
Okay, you just have to remind me because I literally forgot.
So the final contract of your team?
Oh, the teachers yes. So as Ruth mentioned, and we you guys voted on and approved through the consent agenda, the teacher's contract has been finalized, and so I think you gave good comments to that already, but it was a good constructive process, and through that, I think we heard very clearly some of the concerns that our teachers have, and clearly. They worked hard and, suffered like so many of us through the pandemic. And so we had some good constructive conversations in terms of the economics of the plan. I think, we landed in a very good place and just, for the good of everybody. Contract negotiations with teachers unions here in the state of Connecticut can be challenging because, at the end of it, if we can't agree, we land in binding arbitration. And so, in that process, you wind up giving away, control of your destiny. And so it's always better when we can come to terms locally. And, I'm really grateful for that committee. And, like I said, it was a good constructive conversation. I think we landed in a good place for both parties. So thank you for that. And it is very much a relief to have that now in the rearview mirror.
Can I ask you a question? Or whomever wants to answer it. The grant that you're applying for, are you hoping that money will fund 3 mental health?
Correct. So it's a state grant. Kim and Andrea actually had finalized it, and so, we have the equivalent of 2 positions in the ARP-ESSER grant that's expiring, and so we're hoping that this grant will, replace those funds that are drying up, and it's a 3-year grant, and then 1 additional that's currently in our budget. So it would be, if these funds come through and we get the full grant amount, it would really make a big difference. As you know, we're contemplating what to do with some of these positions as the federal grants expire.
And then the comment about our schools, we had talked about some improvements at Middlebrook and the high school. Are we talking about possibly delaying that another year?
It depends. So I think if you look at the bonding schedule now, there are some other challenges just in the schedule. The police station and then the accompanying debt service to go with the police station. There is a demand for some turf fields, and so I know Lynn and her team was working on trying to locate those things, and so those are, I think, a smaller amount, so those might be placed in the next fiscal year, and then we would look at probably, fiscal 25 to begin renovation work. I understand the timeline, and when we talked about it, meaning when Lynn and I talked about it earlier this summer about where these things were going to go, I was comfortable with any change in a timeline, because we're not kicking it out forever, but as long as the commitment remains, and the commitment is there, and I think with this gentleman Jeff Pardo being hired by the town as the Deputy Department of Public Works Director, he's got some pretty extensive school facilities experience. He's coming out of the Stanford Public Schools, and so I'm interested in having him go through a process, because I think we might very well end up with a better product than we would have otherwise. So I think the short answer to the question is yes, we could be looking at another year. But I don't think that's the whole answer. I think we're probably going to end up in a better place ultimately.
There was a comment about doing kind of like a 10-year look at having the consultant on line item. So is that something that would come out of our budget, or is that the town?
It's a great question. I'm not sure. I mean, it wouldn't.
Okay.
That it won't land in that item. I don't believe would land in the bonded proposal.
Right.
But I think on behalf of the Board of Ed, Jeff will put that budget line together, and I think
Okay.
we'll just make a decision.
Okay.
Whether it's in our operating capital or it's on the
something
town
the town
side.
is facilitating.
So we'll figure that
Okay.
out as we go through the process.
And I guess as long as Pam brought it up about the buses for the athletes, is there a way that we could possibly work with coming up with something creative about parents driving, a waiver possibility to drive other students, like a waiver process where they could be
With transporting
permitted
kids, yeah, it's a good
transporting
question.
kids.
I think we have to look at everything.
Yeah.
We have not pursued that yet,
Okay.
and I think it's just generally around the liability questions.
Yeah, there's a waiver process that could then perhaps.
Yeah, I guess we
facilitate that.
can pursue it.
Yeah.
I think we have to look at everything at this
Yeah.
point, because not only is it a challenge, but it's a really expensive
It's a
challenge,
challenge,
because
yeah.
now we're contracting with companies like Elite Limousine,
Yeah.
and paying double or triple what we might for a typical school
And we're
bus through
going far
SDA.
to play Darien, that's close.
Well, that's another issue. That's an issue we have to take up with the CIAC,
Yeah.
is having us play these games. Now this is a state game, so I would
Yes.
put that in a separate category. But this fall sports season, we've sent teams all over the place, and I don't remember a time when we've sent so many teams so far away so many times, and that's something that we have to take on. It's the CIAC schedules, and I can't speak with any authority about how it all comes together by sport, but it's been an observation that I've made. I'm not the only one, that we've sent a lot of teams. I think about our football team traveling to Tolland and I don't know, to the far northeast corner of the state. I just don't know why we're sending. There are plenty of high schools in this area, so I don't understand the mechanics well enough to understand why. But I do, especially given the high cost of diesel, we really need to look at, how these games are being scheduled and see if we can influence some closer games to avoid those costs.
Yeah.
How long does it take to find out if parents are allowed to transfer?
Yeah, I think it's probably a legal question first, and then we'd go from there. So stand by.
Bus drivers.
Right, I mean, most parents know anyway. Right,
That's
I mean,
true. They
for
go to the
So, I
many
mean-
sports, like, a good handful are going, and it just seems like.
If it's possible.
Yeah. So just stand by.
Yeah.
Yep. Stand by. Great. So that was business
Okay.
operations.
Oh,
Yep. So
okay.
we got a.
that's committee.
Yep. So Dawn.
We stole Dawn's thunder a bit.
I tried not to get too much, so she could get me.
How are you, Dawn?
I'm well, how are you?
Good, thank you.
So, as mentioned, this is October, and before you are the October numbers, which completes the second full month of school. We remain focused, the entire finance department is watching financial spend on a daily basis. Special education, as mentioned, outplacements increased almost $254,000 during October, putting that budget line at 1.6 million over budget. As an offset to that, we're anticipating at this time 1.1 million in excess cost reimbursement funds to come in. As the process goes through, if we find that projection is a little bit low, we'll increase that. Or if we find it's a little bit high, we'll decrease it and keep that number in line with what the actuals are. The first submission usually is the higher amount reimbursement, and then the later submission is usually a lot less. So we'll know when we get our first submission from the state or first reimbursement from the state where we will kind of land with that coverage. Utilities is somewhat another area in our budget that we're watching, all the lines. While they are not over budget at this time, we're anticipating that they will become over budget as they are trending much higher than last year. We are looking at a possibility and projecting that building fuel and natural gas will end the budget year 8% over budget. We anticipate electricity to end the fiscal year approximately 43% higher than what we have budgeted, and vehicle fuel to come in on that line approximately 70 to 75% over budget. It may seem like a high projection, but given the amount of fuel and the cost, if the cost starts to come back down, that projection will come down as well. And then over the past month, as Pam had mentioned in her report, we've had conversations with the athletic department and had added the athletic transportation to our watch list as STA continues to have drivers shortages, causing the athletic department to have outsourced their transportation concerns, which is at a much higher cost. In addition to those, we're monitoring substitute expenses and overtime. Both of those are still within budget, but are trending higher than last year, and so we're keeping an eye on that. And the last thing to mention is you look at the numbers that are there, you'll see that there are two maintenance lines that have no budget for them, but the total of them is $99,776, and this is unbudgeted expenses that occurred because of the power surge, where we had to purchase equipment in order to get the schools back up and running again. Is there any specific questions to any of the financials?
Do you, your electricity figures, do they, there were some remarks from Eversource today about the expected increase in electricity. Does your report not even factor those very high?
I'm sorry, I can't quite hear you, I'm sorry.
Eversource made some comments today. They're petitioning this, I think, the state, saying they may need to increase costs by another 50%.
Oh my God.
Is this, so that your electricity figures don't even factor today's announcement in?
No, these are based on actuals.
Okay.
And we're trending 43% higher, and it's, it's not what we're consuming, it's the,
Year
the
to year
supply
comparison.
charges, yes.
Right. The current charges that are hitting our bills are not what we consume and what we can actually control. It's the increase in the cost of electricity that is charged to us by the electric companies. We don't have much control over that particular part of the bill. We do have control over our consumption, and that is there are certain areas that we are looking at in order to try to control that as we go through the rest of the fiscal year.
Dawn, can you share about the Board of Ed stipend? What is that exactly?
The what? I'm sorry?
The Board of Education stipend?
Board of
Oh,
Education.
those are stipends. So that's the 40311. I think those are the contracted stipends.
Those are, yeah, the teacher contracted stipends
Yeah.
or the contracted stipends that are normal.
Yeah, not a stipend for BOE members.
BOE as in the Board of Education, but as in public schools.
The digital resources and the textbooks, are we up for a certain reason, or has this changed?
I think it's timing of just getting all the supplies and the equipment
for sure.
and the textbooks and whatnot for the various. I believe at one point we were looking at how that increase there with some transfers that we had to take on as certain pilot programs caused the purchase of some textbooks beyond what we anticipated.
Yeah, there was on the digital resource line, there was actually a part of that amendment is a product we were going to let go of, but a group of teachers lobbied very heavily to retain it for one more year. And then textbooks and workbooks, I think the change that was driven by,
The math.
we purchased some additional illustrative mathematics materials. We increased the scope of the pilot at the elementary school.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is to review and discuss the business consulting report.
I'm happy to give a quick update as to our progression with that. The district hired a consulting firm, Twin Lakes, in helping us get our e-payment option, our platform, new platform for parents to process student fees, collections for whether it's field trips or participation fees, technology repairs. The discussion to change to this platform was because of a couple of things. One, there was numerous conversations over the past years that parents wanted the ability to be able to pay for these items online. This platform called My School Bucks, which is what we're implementing, allows for that, and it also allows for the ability of efficient auditing process to ensure that funds are going into the appropriate accounts, and also integrates with PowerSchool, which is a big plus. The integration should also save time for our staff in the assessing and reporting of the fees, as well as allow our families to see their students' fees all in one location on PowerSchool, something that isn't possible right now with the PayPal that we currently have in place. Our process for this that we took on, Jamie Terry is the consultant for Twin Lakes and has been working with us to get the technical side of the My School Bucks platform up and running. Currently, student activity accounts were with Bankwell, who has moved out of Wilton, and therefore we opened up new student activity accounts for each of the schools in our current banking institution, which is Webster. We're working to get all of the activity behind the scenes so that when any fees are taken in, that they're now going into the new account, and eventually the old accounts will be closed out. As we start the transition, any type of time you implement a new process, you always try to start a little bit small to make sure you have all of your behind the scenes activities working appropriately. So we've decided that we were going to start with participation fees, especially since they are seasonal, and we can pretty much jump into any athletic season and start that testing. We looked at beginning, our goal was to have this up and running by the end of October, the end of November, beginning of December. And so we were watching the collection of these athletic sports fees for the winter sports. I believe that opened up, started on October 26th, and the tentative deadline for the athletics collection of sports fees will be, or the winter sports fees will be around December 8th. Therefore, we're hoping to use some of that collection as part of our test process with our new platform that we have in place. And as well as that, we've been working with the staff, and we've had numerous training and meeting sessions throughout November and some in October. We're communicating that with each of the schools, and then our consultant has been going around to each of the schools and verifying that all the needs are met and to ensure their staff members have the knowledge that they need to run the program successfully, and that the various fees that are collected at the various schools are also implemented within the platform so that it's an easy process. Or not all schools have the same type of fees, similar fees, but and some have other fees that others don't. So we wanted to make sure that everybody's needs were met. So we're doing that as a one-on-one. Communications are being prepared to be sent out to parents as changes are implemented, and we'll be also updating the district website. At this time, we are on track to get this implemented and running. We believe we will have this up and running around the time of the school break for the holiday. And we'll be updated as that goes. But hopefully we'll be able to allow parents to use the online platform and be able to see all of their student fees that are paid in one place and on PowerSchool, which is where you go for all your other activities.
Dawn, will there be an option for a parent to pay by check if they don't want to pay online?
Yes, you can always continue to pay by check. This just gives you the ease of paying online, which was something that has been asked for.
Yeah, this was a project that's been on the list for a long time. And so when Ann Kelly Lenz departed, Mary Ann Salvato and I met, and we went through kind of the list of major projects that, were kind of in the initial phase and what we could do. It was, before Dawn came on board. And so when I kind of reached out to my colleagues across the state just to see how other districts were handling these kinds of things, Twin Lakes emerged as one of the consulting firms that does this work. It's comprised of business officials from districts across the state, and so they come together and they do project-based work in their off hours. And so it's this was kind of our first go with them, and if it goes well, there might be some other projects we want to lean on them to help us with.
Well, I know that's the same system that I used to fund my school lunch accounts for the kids.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so and that's one of the goals is to try to have a single system, as Dawn just mentioned, that integrates with PowerSchool.
Any other questions for Dawn? Thank you, Dawn.
Awesome. Thank you.
Now we're on to review and discuss the school climate update. Hello, Kim. How are
Great,
you?
welcome back. So while Kim's just getting set up, we're going to see her twice over the course of the next month. So one of her primary areas of responsibility is school climate, and then the other is SEL. And while those things are related, they're not the same. So tonight, Kim's going to talk to us just about our student wellness efforts.
No? It's working? Yep. Can you put it into the notebook? I can't see this far away. Oh, do I need to do it? Okay. We can go.
Kim, if you just go to view, you should be able to do it
Yeah.
with the mouse.
We have it.
There you go. Okay, so, good evening, and I'm here to talk about well-being as it relates to wellness and school climate. I'll change this. Oh, well, it's gonna fade. Anyway, I think you're familiar with the goal. Chuck might have presented it back in October. So, our wellness goal is, really around our social emotional skills, around school climate. So students with age-appropriate social emotional skills will be better equipped to manage stress, to solve problems, and effectively interact in their relationships, allowing them to fully engage in their academic career. And these are life skills for students that will serve them now and as they transition to college and beyond. So the objectives around this goal incorporate the use of our district screeners as a preventive measure across grade levels, our continued implementation of our SEL programs and practices to build and enhance skills, and then tools to assess students' SEL skills and competency to target instruction at all 3 tiers of intervention. And then the school climate improvement process, which is the last 5 bullets, is really is our improvement process that is required by the state. So we survey, and then we look at our data, and then we create action plans based on that data. I know there were some concerns around the time, certainly, and the number of objectives, but I just want to be clear that there's really not anything new here that we're doing. There's some new tools that are going to make our processes more streamlined, and we're working on enhancing our SRBI process, so we have a more targeted approach for interventions, but nothing here is out of what we've been doing. And hopefully by the end of the presentation, I'll answer some of those questions you have. So what do we mean when we talk about wellness? And these are the indicators that we feel all contribute to student wellness and relate to the portrait of the graduate around being balanced and healthy human being. So in each of these indicators, school life overall contributes to student wellness. And we're going to talk about, I'll talk quickly about the different indicators. So when we look at school climate, and this is our full climate survey and our well-being surveys that we've done the last 2 years, really takes into account safety, the relationships that students have, teaching and learning practices, and environment. A focus for the district has been on student connectedness and relationships, and how engaged students are in their academic and their school career. And we've had a strong focus on that connectedness, especially at the secondary level over the last, I say, 5+ years. And then we have the area of social emotional skills as it relates to our competencies and relates to the CASEL core competencies. And then around student safety in terms of physical and emotional, how they feel in the school, rules, norms, security, and social emotional security. And then the environment, their connectedness and involvement in school and their physical surroundings. And we're able to measure these in the different tools that we have, which is going to bring me on to our most recent, I lost the mouse. There we go. Our most recent data, which we completed. It was a fall survey last year, but it happened at the different schools over a period of months because of different COVID-related circumstances. So we never presented last year's survey, so we'll do some comparison to the last 2 years. So over the last 2 years during the pandemic, we've used the Panorama Wellbeing Survey, which really looks at how students are feeling. It's a valid and reliable instrument. It looks at their positive and challenging feelings, supportive relationships, which is an area of focus, and we also included emotion regulation and engagement in school. I just wanted to take a minute to focus around social support. Again, we feel connectedness is something really important to measure for our students. We know that it saves lives. The more students that are connected, the more that they reach out for support. It can be emotional, informal, or intangible. It's perceived and not just received. And we look at support in not just between peers, but staff and families. And this, again, is a continued focus for us and contributes directly to student well-being. So here are participation rates. You can see the survey in 2020, and then our participation rates, which it was nice to see we had better participation rates at the high school. And 65% is a good target for our high schoolers in terms of participating in surveys.
Do you have the quantifiable numbers for it? So it's like 65%
Of the
like
total population of
which
the high
is
school,
what?
13 and
So 13, yeah, 1,300, so
Okay.
figure 65%, 1,300.
So I'm showing you this slide. This is 2 years ago because I'm going to show you the percentage of change on the next slide. This is around positive feelings, challenging feelings, and emotion regulation. And the way this survey works is percentage of favorable responses in these areas. So this is where we were 2 years ago. Not a lot changed in this area. We'll see changes later, but you'll see at Cider Mill, again, Cider Mill gave their survey after we were unmasked. So I think we see a little.
something to do.
Yeah, it was the high school surveyed in December and the middle school surveyed in February. I believe it was before break. We were still having some cohorting, so not major changes here. Student engagement and student relationship is where we saw bigger changes. So again, this is overall percentage of favorable responses around the engagement, and then we go into what makes that up. So the questions that are asked are how much effort are you putting in your classes? You see a upward trend here. How difficult or easy for you to try your schoolwork? Again, a positive trend upward. And again, how difficult or easy is it for you to stay focused on your schoolwork right now? And again, we see a positive trend upward. And then feeling connected. Again, we know this improves well-being, and we saw nice increases here as well. So this is around relationships. Overall, we see an improvement across the board. And what makes up this full score are the questions around, are there adults that you can go to in school for help if you need it? This is really positive data that we'd like to see here. Again, mostly trending upward. Now, this is an interesting one. How connected do you feel? We spent some time with it. We think that the kids have well, there's two things here. They have some difficulty, maybe what does connected mean? And are you connected to all of your teachers? We spent some time at Cider Mill talking about what connected means before they took the survey, and we see certainly a nice increase there. Also, the way Panorama looks at favorable responses for this question, somewhat connected is not added, and a lot of kids did respond to somewhat
So
versus
that's not
quite or
considered
extremely.
favorable?
It's not considered favorable in this question.
Do some of our kids say somewhat connected because maybe they're really connected to one?
Exactly.
I think
So
that's
moving
hard
forward,
question.
we're going to tweak this question a little bit because we're not sure the data is so accurate.
yeah.
And then how do you feel to other students? This is telling, right? Certainly, we see a huge increase at the high school from one year to next. So although the data is a little old, I think it's good to kind of set the stage. We also ask kids both years if they would like to talk privately with a teacher, counselor, or any other adult. And you know, these numbers are large, and so these kids were, certainly followed up. Some just wanted to chat with their teacher. We reworded the question a little bit different in year 2, but students were certainly needing support around
Kim, how
this
long have we
time.
been doing the panorama?
For 3 years.
It would be, I feel like 2020 was such a bad year.
Yep.
Did we see was 2019 this, and did 2020 just tank and now
Well,
we're back up to normal?
Yeah. In 20,
Because I just feel like 2020 is such a hard year to.
We were planning in the school closure year
Okay.
to do a full survey with Panorama, and we never got to it.
Got it.
We were doing it
got
in
it.
March.
So
we-
our baseline is really COVID.
our baseline, unfortunately, is COVID.
Yeah, so and we're going to do a full survey
Yeah.
this year.
Yeah,
Got it.
this winter.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So now we're just going to talk a little bit about our preventative model. I just wanted to give people an update on that data. So why screen? And we really feel strongly that screening is really the way toward prevention and early identification, just like we do for reading and writing. And you'll start to see if at the doctor's office, they're doing a quick screen there as well. The state is encouraging screening. They're not mandating it yet. I wonder if it will come. And they have some tools, one which we are using, and I'll talk more about. So we continue to respond to crisis, and I'm going to talk more about that data at the end. At the same time, focusing on a more preventative approach, and we feel screening is the way to, the earlier we can identify concerns, the better the outcomes are for students, and then hopefully avoiding crises. So our approach is we're using the BEST, which is a form of the BASC screener during the transition years in grades 3, 6, and 9. Our mental health staff felt strongly after using this tool and identifying students that were not on the radar that they wanted to screen in grade 8 and 12 because of concerns that we've seen in the last year or two. So this tool is a self-report for students, and it looks at at-risk behavior around internalizing, externalizing, and interpersonal. And then at the elementary level, we had used for the last 2 years an observable checklist, in-house tool that we created, but we replaced that this year with the DESA, which is a little more comprehensive and normed tool. And then our Panorama survey gathers our school climate and well-being data. We continue to offer professional development to staff around identification of students of concern and interventions and how to refer. And then our mental health emergency interventions. So just to talk a little bit, the DESA, which is the Devereaux Student Strengths Assessment, this is a tool that the state is supporting. It's evidence-based social-emotional competency assessment, and it is in line with our core competencies as well as CASEL's. So this is giving us, for the first time, some baseline data on our students' skills, and then a targeted approach for those that maybe need more instruction in certain areas. And this is observable by the teacher. And we're currently doing that in grades K through 5. The BASC, which I talked a little bit before on the other slide, is a different tool. It's a self-report, and we're using that at the transition years, primarily because we know there's more transitions here in the way our buildings are set up, and that's a time where kids can really struggle. What's changed this year is that the state requires informed consent. And so our rates are much lower than we've done in the past with passive consent. So that's a concern that we have to figure out how to get the word out. I'm not sure parents, read the emails. I know as a mom of 3, it's hard to keep up with all of that. So I think we need to do a better job of educating parents. And
Is it opt-out?
it's
No, it's opt-in.
it's
It's opt-in.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
we need consent. So the numbers were much lower, but we're going to continue to be creative in the ways that we can get that out.
Can I think anybody that read through it assumed it was going to be an opt-out? Continue
Could be.
being assigned to opt-out
Yeah.
versus an opt-in.
In, so we'll have to, yeah,
Once people realized it, it was already past the date.
to pass the
so-
date, yeah.
Maybe
actually
like
thought it was
subject
an
line,
opt-out.
Yeah.
must opt in,
Must opt in.
or something, something to,
Yeah, so more work to be done there.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said it's a self-reporting tool?
Yes.
So, do you feel like kids are accurately self-reporting?
I think they do. Yeah, I mean, it has some validity and confidence factors. So if a
Okay.
kid's just scrolling through, it'll pick that up.
Okay.
And it asks questions, similar questions in different ways, so it will kind of alert you
Okay.
if there's some issues there. So
Because I know sometimes kids can be savvy and feel like they need help, but they don't want to flag themselves
Yeah.
for it. So
Yeah.
it just, yeah.
Yeah, that's hard to know, but we find usually it's it's kind of a private way to,
Okay.
that kids reveal. So, and it picks up, the teacher observation may miss, and we did
Okay.
kind of cross-check in grade 3. We did our observable checklist and the BESS, and teachers, those internalizers you may not always see, so the BESS picks that up.
Okay.
So now, this is the more challenging part of the presentation in terms of our mental health emergency interventions. So I keep this graphic in here. So this is from last year. Although it's a small number of students that may need this level of intervention, when you look at the whole population, like any student is too much in my book. And I think that these are the kids that have come to the surface that we know about. We know that there's more students out there that information may not be shared or get services elsewhere.
But for those of us with bad eyes, what is the top 2 numbers?
35.
Yeah.
35.
Yeah, I'm gonna speak to that on the next
But I mean,
slide.
what's the number in the blue?
The number in the blue is the total population, so you're in the thousands.
24, 37, got it, and 35, okay.
Sorry, I can't see. So what's a mental health emergency intervention? Staff member receives concerning information from a teacher, a parent, other students, police, our Gaggle filtering software, or our cyber tip line. The mental health staff then interviews the student, assess what's going on, and determine what intervention is necessary. It involves the family, of course. These interventions include mobile crisis evaluation, kids in crisis referrals, a referral to DCF, referral for assessment to outside treaters, sending a child to the emergency room, or doing a threat assessment. We use a specific tool called the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale, which is a 6-question assessment tool and helps the mental health worker kind of determine whether this needs a behavioral intervention or we need something immediate. And then our interventions are logged, so we can track these kids, especially as they move from school to school, and make sure that they're getting the appropriate follow-up, because there's usually case management that is ongoing when this happens. Now, as I present this data, I just want to, we're new to collecting data over the last 3 years. I think the data at our secondary level is pretty accurate. The elementary level, I'm not sure in the beginning we were using it as regularly, and the interventions, or the issues are a little different. So as I present the data, it may not tell the whole picture at the elementary schools.
And is this for last year then?
This is last year, correct, yep. So our filtering software is called Gaggle, and so this is one way, and I'm super glad that we have this because we get a lot of information that we might not otherwise. And there's 3 types of warnings, and so this slide is for, as you see, just up until October of 26. A PSS, possible student situation, is an emergent situation where we get an immediate text, someone has to respond within, I think it's
5 minutes.
maybe 3 minutes or 5 minutes, or phone calls are made to everybody on, all the administrators and central office are on these text threads. So that's a situation that needs to be dealt with immediately. Questionable content is a situation where there are concerns and we need to address it, but it may not be imminent. And then a violation is profanity. So this is what our numbers look like in the beginning of this year.
And these are on school devices. Gaggle only does.
Gaggle monitors any school device,
Right.
yeah, or anything through the Google
That's in our
Suite.
Google Suite, right?
Right,
So if a student sends in a personal email
right. On
to
their-
somebody in ours,
Yep.
it'll pick it up.
Yep.
Yeah, and then sometimes students will upload something to Google as well, not realizing, they're in their Google Drive. So, that's the only way it picks up personal stuff. So these are the incidents by category. Now, if a student is writing about something, in a class, it'll pick it up. So it doesn't mean we had 16, kids that were potentially suicidal. It's just bringing up these types of issues that are then investigated and, students get support. So again, this is the same time period. And we're on track with those in comparison to last year.
So the 2022, 2023, how, is that up to date from October?
That's through October 26th.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Kim, do you have any, do you have a sense of where we were at this time last year, trend-wise?
Fran and I looked at that, and
Yeah.
we're a little higher.
A little higher than
Yeah.
last year, okay.
Yep. This is the tracking of our district mental health interventions, and this is the slide that's hard to look at. There's certainly, and we do have data from the first year we started, which is 2020. So you see quite an increase in emergency interventions. Just want to, and then Kevin and I talked about updating the slide, and then I looked at the data for a crisis meeting this morning at the high school. Since this was updated, we had 11 crisis interventions this month, and 8 were around suicide ideation. We've had 4 in the lower schools, so that information is not on here, which is significant.
4 in the lower schools?
4 in the emergency mental health. So the lower schools tend to be more behavioral, but not, it could be a mental health intervention as well.
And trend, as much as you can maybe say, in comparison to this time last year,
It's
significantly higher.
It's higher.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do you feel, well, we can talk about resources.
Yeah.
Is that for it's higher for
Every
It's
school.
not just
school?
Wilton.
No, I mean every
No.
school in Wilton? Like when
We're
you're looking at this one?
The last slide. It's significantly higher for the high school.
Okay.
That we are seeing, right now, we're seeing higher rates at the high school and the 3-5 building with the data that's being reported. I need to get better at reporting it at the lower school. In this slide, in comparison, so you see, in what the majority of the crisis at the high school is suicidal ideation, and in the 9th grade is where we're seeing a lot of crises this year. Of the 26 last year, half were referred to mobile crisis. So mobile crisis is a service that comes and does assessments in the school, and then will determine if they need an emergency evaluation or if they need ongoing support, and then will help the family get that support.
And I'm sorry, this 6 that you have is as of October 26th?
That's as of October 26th, so it doesn't include the 11
So
in
there's been
additional. Or
11.
actually, it's
5 additional.
for suicidal ideation, it's been 8.
8.
Yeah. And I think the alarming for me is, this is my 27th year, kids in adolescence think about suicide. It happens, but we had students actually acting on it. So as you see, the number of 7 last year attempts, luckily no one was successful.
And
But
Kim,
it's concerning.
does this break down if it's if the parent calls you and says something happened on a weekend, if it's at the school?
That we know about.
Okay,
Yeah.
that you know about. And then of the 8 that we've had, how many of those have required medical intervention?
Of the 8, which are you referring to
Oh,
here?
so it's 6 plus 8 so far this season, this year.
Oh, it's 6 plus 8, or I thought it was 8 total. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. So of those, how many require emergency intervention? All of them?
Well, emergency intervention, it could be an outside provider that's doing the
mobile
assessment.
that you were just talking about.
The mobile crisis, I'd have to look, and I can get you that.
So when mobile crisis is called, just talk through what are the kind of the range of events that may happen as a result of mobile crisis responding?
Yeah, they could recommend that the child be assessed at the emergency room, which is the process of getting evaluated and then into, a facility to, sometimes it's a medication issue, of why the child's struggling, or they may need medication, and so that can be done more quickly in a hospital setting.
And I'm just trying to wrap my head around this again. So
Yep.
This is until October 22nd. So
Correct.
since October 22nd, we've had 8 additional ones in those 2.5 weeks.
That's in the last, yeah, we have, I mean, I was saying in the last month, but when we started, yep.
And today is what, November 17th? So since the 26th to the 17th.
Mhm.
Yeah, so the kids that are not well are not well.
Are not
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
Some,
But it's like in that short period of time, like what? is
so
possible?
in terms of this data is fresh in my
The
head.
honeymoon period of starting school is over. It's kind of like things have, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would be
Five
careful
of-
about theorizing around this time.
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
3 of the cases we were aware of and have had ongoing concerns, and then 5 were new to us, so.
And they, just to be, so they also span, this is all located at Wilton High School?
Right here, this data here
Okay, fine.
is Wilton High School, yeah, and the 11 that I just said is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, so just to kind of sum up, this, and I'm sorry, no, we've got this year and last year, but a total of 84 emergency interventions that we collected data on. We saw the higher numbers in grades 4, 8, 9, and 11. That was last year, so you can see why we wanted to do screening in grade 12 this year. And then I had the information, this was again, total of 12 emergency interventions so far in the 6 weeks this school year. Again, that doesn't include these 11 that I just spoke about. And at this point, half of these were in our grade 9 students. And the types of concern, again, are ideation, student needing immediate evaluation, self-injurious behavior, physical incident at home, or report of abuse and neglect are some of the areas. So some of the things that we've put in place, just to kind of talk about when we talk about ideation and attempts in terms of preventative efforts. We launched a new club that a student brought to us last year called Hope Squad, and students are trained in a protocol called QPR, Question, Persuade, and Respond. And they are nominated by their peers as people that are trustworthy and someone you could go to. And the premise is kids go to kids. They talk to kids first. So let's train kids to know the signs and refer them to help. So we launched that with 15 students to start, and then they'll do a lot of preventative and mental health awareness work throughout the year. So we're excited to launch that club, and it came from students, which is just phenomenal. We're looking at the Signs of Suicide program, which is an evidence-based prevention program that's going to be piloted in grades 8 and 10. We use pieces of it, but we're going to go for full fidelity of implementing that as another layer to maybe intervene with these students earlier. And then in the fall, we did Say Something training, which came out of Sandy Hook, and this was helping students to understand that you're not snitching or tattling, that, you know, when there's certain behaviors, you need to report and share that information with an adult, and just raising awareness about concerns around threat to self or others. We continue to do staff development, and we have 2 members on staff that are trained in QPR that can now train staff, again, to use this protocol. And then collaborating with the outside community, the Wilton Youth Council, and I believe social services is going to be doing a panel just to continue to raise awareness and help parents understand the warning signs, because I think parents are the last to see it. I think kids can hide things pretty well. So moving forward, we want to continue a more proactive preventative approach to get ahead of the uptick in crisis that we're seeing. So we want to move from reactive crisis response that we're in now to a more proactive prevention model, and to do so we need to continue to assess skill development, identifying where the needs are, and then targeting interventions around universal supports, as well as having tiered interventions at the tier 2 and 3 level. And we want to focus on using a data-driven approach to really target supporting students. I'm coming back to talk more specifically around our SEL practices, tools, and approaches at a later meeting, so we can get into that in terms of what are some of the things that we're doing. And I wish I was ending on a happier note. I'm proud of the work that we're doing in the district. I think we have put a lot of interventions in place and are moving towards a more proactive model. We're just in a time period where cohorts of kids are not okay. It's not different than schools around our area and certainly nationally, but continues to be a concern.
Yeah, and there's community interests and awareness in this topic.
Yep.
I think the community support is strong and continues to grow. There's still a gap in referral services in terms of the outside agencies, and that needs to be addressed much more thoroughly at the state level. But I think locally there's a lot of eyes. Kim's got a lot of thought partners as we're all trying to work through this. So there's some good pieces in place. So I think there's reason to be optimistic, as well as you've seen the numbers. There's reason to to be concerned for sure.
Do you feel like you're resource-wise, you're able to move the preventative along at a pace that is not stymied by so much of the crisis intervention?
Yeah, it's hard, but we're moving. And I think our staff's on board. They see the benefit of the screening process. Initially, it felt overwhelming, but I think we're able to kind of move through it. Overwhelming in terms of what are the numbers going to be, but it's been manageable. And I think ultimately over time we'll be at a place where we're seeing things decrease. But in the meantime, there's some tension there in terms of the needs. But we need to make the shift.
Question about the Hope Squad stuff. My son's involved in that, and the stuff is amazing that he came home with. It was
great.
And we had such great conversations about it. And he was asking, are the coaches, do they go through professional training on that? Like, I know the teachers do, but just curious about athletic coaches, because so many kids are so close to their coaches.
Well, actually, I'm working with Bobby around. He's very much an advocate around well-being, and we added what we found out with Hope Squad is that the kids were saying they don't know the resources that are available, which is I was shocked that they don't, because I thought we promote better. So we added some information in his presentation last night to winter athletics. So we're going to continue to partner because so many of our kids are in athletics. So that's a great avenue to let kids know what the resources are and what social emotional learning is all about. So that's something that we have to
And can we have the coaches go through a small professional development just for things to look for?
They go through our bullying training. I don't know if there's anything, but the work that we've done at the high school, we can do with the coaches.
It's a great point because, and I think
they may see it.
And the kids, some of our kids, they're so connected to the coaches. So it's just another layer of, exactly, people to be paying attention. So it's definitely worth pursuing.
I'd like to talk to a coach and a teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Absolutely. They do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Absolutely,
it's a really good suggestion. Any other questions?
Thank you for coming and presenting us.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the work you do.
Thanks.
Very hard job.
Yes. And Kim is, she really, she never thinks she does, but she's got her arms around it and really has a very good systems view. And, as you saw kind of through the presentation, her approach and the preventative, proactive systems measures we're developing are absolutely the right step.
Well, we have an amazing staff too.
Yes.
Our mental health staff is top notch, so it's great to work with. Thank you all for your time.
Thanks, Kim.
Thank you.
Okay.
Middle book schedule.
Thank you. As you know, we've been working hard on our schedule, but really looking for a schedule that fully embraces our values as a learning community. And right now, we're really looking at probably about 2 models. They're both kind of a modified drop-block situation. We're not really ready to show all those details yet because we're still really working at ironing out some of the glitches that as we put students in, as we look at program across the week, across the year, adjustments that we need to make. But really the important aspects of the schedule include longer continuous blocks of instruction for both a integrated ELA class and math class. We're also focusing on students having the option of participating in support classes that don't conflict with stride, as well as fewer transitions across the day, and also additional opportunities for STEM instruction. That's really a quick overview. If you have some questions, but we're really looking at having a final recommendation in the coming weeks so that we could really explain everything out in more detail at that time.
Yeah, leading into budget.
Are we looking into doing like a pilot or just all at once?
We're going to transition to next year because the schedule. I mean, there may be an opportunity
Yeah, I
to
know it's
pilot
hard.
sometime in the spring just to
Yeah.
test. But I think even when Middlebrook was contemplating that a year or so ago,
hard.
it's hard.
Yeah,
And so
no, I understand why too, the logistics.
yeah, I mean, you have, Damien is
Yeah.
a wizard at mocking these things up, so as close, as we can get to mapping them out, they'll certainly do going forward.
We'd really like to do that for both the students and the teachers, even if it's for just our 6th and 7th graders. As we get closer to the end of the year, our 8th grade class, as you know, is quite a bit larger than the other two classes and makes it more challenging to schedule them into some of these models that we're looking at. But we'd hope to be able to do that. We'd also hope to be able to have a lot of opportunities for professional development, including hopefully having staff members visit some other schools that have similar models.
Yeah, so I think that, we've been kind of laboring over schedules for a long time. So as Toby said, they're one's a like an essential block type schedule and the other's a drop schedule, and so the goals there are to get the instructional periods to be 60-65 minutes. That was the call from the Math Curriculum Review Committee. It's the minimum you need if we're going to integrate ELA, and then there's a host of other concerns and I think good priorities that need to be considered. I just want to take a minute. It feels like it's been forever to get to a schedule, and it's not without good reason. We have some unique features in our Middlebrook schedule that really present as conundrums when you're trying to make these wholesale changes, and so there's a lot of, I think, good debate about which priorities are you going to privilege, and so.
And Jory gave a great presentation at the Teaching and Learning Committee. I think you were sick that day, but it was
Yes, I was.
very in-depth. And I love how involved the teachers are. I think
Yeah,
that's great.
some are. It's been I think it's, that's the process, I think, has been transparent. And
Yeah.
so now we're coming into this.
The home stretch.
It is, because this thing has to be baked before, we get into a full-blown budget.
Yeah.
Because there's some clear and obvious budget implications.
But we'll be kind of at a place where we'll have time to kind of, as a board, look at it before we.
Yeah, you're not going to have a lot of time.
Not a lot of time, but.
Yeah. I mean, yes. So I'm thinking, next month, hopefully in a month at the latest, you'll have something to discuss in person.
I'm going to throw this under schedules, and I hope that there's time for the kids to go on more field trips, because as the parent of an 8th grader, that was, oh my gosh,
Well, we had a great day in New York City
amazing.
last week.
I mean,
the
talk
weather
about social and
was
emotional
also,
health. I mean, the 5 days leading up to it, the excitement after it. So I'm going to put that under the schedule. Make sure to put schedule in
Absolutely.
a lot of field trips.
Yeah, there's file under competing demands for time.
Instructional time, field
Yes.
trip,
Yeah.
6 hours on the bus
Yeah.
to go to New York City. You
Oh,
can,
it was-
They look forward to them.
Oh my gosh,
Love
it
them.
was, I've
Talk
never
about
seen
it,
someone
they're-
get up so early and be ready so early.
Was that your daughter or your husband?
Both of them, both of them were very
It
excited.
was beneficial for staff and students. We
It's
all
just
had a
so
wonderful time.
nice, yes, so nice.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want the board to know, just as you guys are
It's
trying to
really
come to the
working
conclusion?
really hard, and always at the bottom is doing what's best for kids, and that's where we're at.
Thank you.
We know. It's hard, it's very complicated.
If it was easy, we would have presented it a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
Very, very complicated.
You know, it is fun, like, so every other, I was in a conversation recently, actually today I was in a conversation with a superintendent from a neighboring town, and they just changed their high school schedule, and so now they're looking at their middle school schedule. I think everyone else around us is looking at their middle school schedule. You know, we participate in the Tri-State Consortium, and schools, you know, all around the Tri-State are doing the same thing, and, you know, nobody is terribly innovative, but they're all confronting the same kinds of curricular challenges, and so.
And obstacles.
Yeah, and so they're, you know, a couple of them are looking for us to put out a model that they can replicate.
Well, I remember when we went to the block for the high school, how hard that was and what a success that's been.
It's been tremendous.
Tremendous. And
Right.
just hearing the kids talk about it is awesome.
Yeah, yep, and, you know, a number of our neighboring towns have followed suit since
Yeah.
then, so it's okay to go first, guys.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes.
We're trying.
Yeah.
You'll get there.
Thank you.
We'll take really good. It doesn't have to be super perfect.
That's right.
That's where we're at.
Can work out the kinks going forward, like everything
Good old
else.
DC Days phrase, you know, don't sacrifice, you know, the good for the perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, good, thanks. Anything else that you want to share, just to, great, all right, keep working. So, TikTok. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And you shouldn't feel free to not stay. You can go home for the evening.
You should go
Yes,
home.
and you should
Yes,
go home
you've
for the
earned it,
evening.
right,
Thank you.
yeah, thanks.
Seriously. And so now we have discussed and approved the 2023-24
Two copies,
WPS
yeah.
district calendar.
I only have the 23-24. Does
Yeah,
anyone
I'm
else
just
have-
looking at the, I have two copies of the 23-24.
Yeah.
So the 24-25, just as a pattern, is the same.
same.
The
Yeah.
one change I made, I think after our last conversation, in one of the drafts, there was still one of the early release days hanging out there that
Yep.
we had, you know, per your recommendation, I just took off. So now you have the early release in October, and then the two that have been in the calendar already for some years, so there's 3 total.
So we just kept that October, we got rid of the May.
Correct, correct. It was, I think it was
November.
it was a, yes, it was
Yeah.
November.
That was
Add one
Labor
to
Day.
November.
Weren't we doing like an early Labor Day that we talked about?
Nope, it was
I'm
around
sorry,
Columbus Day.
Columbus Day,
Yeah,
that's
and that's
right,
in the
yeah.
calendar.
Yep, I see it.
So that Friday's an early release for professional learning later
Correct.
that day. And then there's another one at the end of it, the end of that week.
On the 10th.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been a fixture of the calendar for some time.
Yeah, we've had that Monday, Tuesday off for a
Yeah,
really
no,
long
I
time.
know.
Yep.
It was Memorial Day, Kevin. Weren't we talking about Memorial Day?
We had one, actually it was in January, tied to, you know, I think on the front side of the Martin Luther King Jr. weekend.
Got it, and that's gone.
It's gone.
Got it.
So at the end of all this, we only added 1 half day.
Instead of 2.
That was the conversation at the board table 2 weeks ago, yes.
I'm in favor. I am not missing something.
No, that's it, yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't, fine by me with all that. My only thing is still the parent-teacher conferences.
Yes, yep.
And how to, I'm a little hesitant to approve unless we can approve a calendar knowing that that could possibly.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, I don't want to commit to a timeline to that because I think these things just take time, and what I'm proposing is to really develop a working group, you know, because I do think we have to provide a conference experience, but I do think there's strong interest among, you know, parents and teachers as well to sort that out. So I'm just going to ask you to indulge me time to get that done, because that's something that needs to be done well, and I don't want to rush it. So what I would propose is, you know, we're at the status quo for now, and if we can get to a place where we have a change ready for next year, then I would just propose an amendment to the calendar. I think what's important for most folks, you know, as they look at these calendars, they know when the first day is, they know about when the last day is, given, you know, inclement weather, and most importantly, the closures, because people plan for, you know, a couple of years out for some vacations.
And Kevin, am I crazy, or did we have, the high school had some early release days?
Yes, and so I apologize, I didn't put those on there. So and those will, I'll write those to you in a separate note. But we're going to go forward with like their 2 intercession days, so in between the
So
2
that's
semesters.
Agreed, okay, perfect.
Yes.
So like, probably like November 6th,
But
7th.
it'll be January in between the first and second semester.
Okay, so not in between the quarters, in between the semesters.
Yeah,
Got
because the reason for that is we have a number of teachers who teach semester-long
Yeah.
courses, and they need the time in between.
Perfect.
Students need the time in between.
And also the high school students feel really gypped off with their siblings.
Do you have some personal information?
I have some personal information.
I've heard
4
similar
half
feedback.
days versus no half days definitely doesn't sit well.
Yeah.
So for all the high schools out there, I'm trying to give them a bone.
So you're gonna add the high school for 2 days in January?
It'll be in January, correct, yeah.
That's just for the high school, correct?
It's on the, correct, high school only.
I just think we should get before we vote for the 24, I think Lucille wants to go get the 24, 25.
Yeah, fine,
Just to get
okay.
eyes on.
Sure.
I will tell you that my daughter has a personal request to change the calendar because the first day of school is not her birthday. I was like, it doesn't work that way.
We can bring her a cake. We'll bring a cake to bio class.
You're not gonna have that much work on the first day, so let her.
It's funny.
No,
Tell her we're opening in her honor.
The only other day that she's been in school for her birthday was kindergarten, and it was the second day of school.
It's early this year.
And
Yeah,
she's gonna-
funny calendar. Well, do you want to vote on the 23, 24
So let's
calendar?
vote on that.
And we'll get the 24, 25.
Is there a motion to approve the 23-24 calendar? Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. All in favor? The 23-24 calendar is approved.
Great. You want to just jump to new courses? And
Sure, and then we
come
can circle
to it?
back.
Sure.
So in the interest of, I guess, saving everyone some breath, we'll just go through it one at a time, that we don't have to list it all out in one motion.
Yeah,
Right?
you have to do a single motion,
Yeah.
sure.
So the first one up is to discuss and approve policy 6141, new course Physics 223. Is there a motion to approve 6141 Physics 223?
I so moved.
Thank you, Pam. Is there a second? Thank you, Jen. Thank you. All in favor for Physics 2? As long as we have the calendars in our mind, let's just hop back this fast, keep us on our toes. So I believe, Kevin, you said that 24-25 just basically mirrors
Yeah, same
the
pattern,
23-24,
Yep.
and we'll put the allotment in for the student, high school students in January. Anybody have any additional questions about calendar year 24-25?
Kevin, why on 24, 25 is the June in green and the other is not? Is that just, that's nothing, right?
Those are the last 3 half days that are shortened. Why are they green? So they're green in November for 23, where the shortened days are. I think that was just, Lucille's trying to color code for
Okay, that's
ease
nothing.
of reading.
Okay,
Yeah.
got it. Just want to make sure.
Is there a motion to approve the 24-25 calendar?
So moved.
Thank you, Nicole. Is there a second? Jen, thank you. All in favor? The 24-25 calendar is approved.
Kevin, there's just one typo on 24, 25. It
Yep.
says 136 last day, Wilton High School staff. I'm guessing that's 13.
13.
Yeah, just change that.
Yep.
Okay. Now on to policy 6141, new course, American Sign Language Level 4 honors for fall 2023 and spring 2024. Is there a motion to approve? Thank you, Nicola. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Pam. All in favor? American Sign Language Level 4 honors, fall 23, spring 24 is approved. Is there a motion on policy 6141, new course, music technology 2? Thank you, Jen. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mandy. All in favor? Alright. I'm gonna bunch the next ones together. Is there a motion to approve policy 6141, new course, sports broadcasting, policy 6141, new course, auto production podcasting?
Audio.
I'm sorry, thank you. Audio production podcasting. Policy 6141, new course, advanced placement seminar AP. And that will conclude it. Is there a motion?
So,
Thank you, Pam. Second, Mandy. All in favor? Aye, so that approves the sports broadcasting, the audio production, and the advanced placement seminar.
and Kevin, one more misprint on 24-25, going back to calendar.
Yeah, go.
It says 17 to 20 possible inclement days. I think it's supposed to be 16 to 20. Because that Monday
Yes, Monday the 16th.
Yeah.
Monday the 16th.
of June. So
Yeah,
it should
good.
say
Yeah, so it'll be 16
13
to 20.
last day,
Yep.
16 to 20 inclement weather days.
Yep,
Sorry.
good catch.
Okay, so now on to the next item, to review the process for filling the BOE vacancy and possible action on filling the vacancy. So, at our last meeting, I suggested former board member Laura Schwem fill the current board vacancy. There was also a suggestion offered to conduct a wider public search. Since the last meeting, we've all had time to think about the two proposed suggestions. So I think at this time, I'd like to go around the table and give each member the opportunity to share their thoughts. So I would ask whoever would like to start. I know Jen or Mandy, you guys suggested opening it up, so if you'd like to start. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead. I was just counting days. Sorry, go ahead. Sorry. Stuck on the calendar still.
I mean, I think I still feel the same way. I would rather open it up, I think that appointing Laura is the easy choice. I think it takes a lot of pressure off of us and a lot of time off of us by just appointing her. But I'm not sure that easy means that's the right thing to do. It might be that we end up appointing her anyway, but I'd like to at least kind of open it up and hear what everybody says and has to say, and, you know, maybe nobody wants to be, maybe nobody wants it, and that's fine. But it needs, I think that the right thing to do is to open it up to the public. I think when we did it in the past, it was a really short period of time. A lot of that time happened to be over the summer where we weren't really doing very much, and now we're talking about a full year, that a lot can happen in a full year. And that's why I was thinking more so to take the time to open it up and, you know, to interview and then make the decision. And if we end up appointing her, then great. But those are my thoughts.
And I'll just say I agree. I think that looking what the Board of Finance did, that they were able to appoint some additional diversity onto the Board of Finance, I think was awesome. You know, with Laura, 6 women, it'd be nice to open it up to see who else is interested. And I really don't see a downside to opening it up to the public except for additional work on us, which I'm happy to take on. And I look at it, what's most important for why we're all here, which is the children and teachers. So to me, it's a win-win.
I think for me, you know, I don't have philosophically don't have a problem with opening it up. It's just more the timing. You know, we've already lost a week. We're going to lose next week. So then we're kind of up against a wall because we feel we have to do this in 30 days. Otherwise, the Board of Selectmen is going to choose it for us.
Did you get the calendar that I sent, the optional of how to do it if we align with the Board of Finance?
No, I didn't.
The email that I sent with the whole breakdown? Did everyone else get that?
I did.
You might have my wrong.
Yeah, I sent it to the Board of Ed. I'll resend it, but I basically took what the Board of Finance did, and I broke down exactly the days that they did it, and how we could mirror those based on where we are. And, you know, my other concern I should add too is if something happened, I mean, we have no bench. So Laura's our bench.
Yeah.
If something happened to one of us and we decided whatever, it would be nice to have a bench. That was my other.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair point. I'm just worried about the timeline because we're about to enter a budget season that's going to be pretty protracted and pretty
Yeah.
intense. And you know, I don't know if we're best served by doing this process as well as trying to figure out a budget for the.
Well, we have till December 11th, right? I'll send you the timeline that I put together.
Okay.
The timeline wasn't an issue.
Okay. That's really more my worry is that we should be focusing on what we can do for the kids in this district, and that's kind of that's our job, and we should be good stewards to that. And I just don't want this to distract us from that piece.
Yeah, this is like one of the most important things, I would say. But
Yeah.
yes, I agree.
So, you know, and we have a precedent that we could fall on if we need to, so that's really more my concern. Philosophically, I don't have a problem with it.
Logistically, I don't think there's an issue. I'll send you, Pam, again what I sent out. But if that's your one concern, I think that's a non-issue.
I think we've had, besides the Gretchen vacancy, there were other times the board appointed people to fill in parts of a term, and I think in either 2005, 2007, that appointment was for half a term for 2 years. So I think there is precedent for appointing someone to the position, and given that the bylaws are kind of
Wishy-washy?
yeah, maybe that's something that we need to look at going forward. I mean, if 5.5 months is an okay time to appoint someone to the board, but a year is too long, what happens if this happens again and it's 7 months? I would prefer some wishy-washiness taken out of the bylaws if the board thinks that's worth our time moving forward.
So, I think that Laura has a really strong combination of experience and expertise and nonpartisanship to fill the vacancy and best serve our kids' schools in town, especially, you know, given the current work before the board. But I also see the merit in the wider approach. So I think that such an approach has to meet those several requirements. It needs to facilitate a public search. It needs to respect the board's 30-day time limit. And it needs to place all potential candidates on equal footing. So I'm going to propose the following process. That a public notice would go out on November 22nd, 21st, which is Monday, with submission of applications by noon on the 28th. We would reserve the partial week of the 28th for finalist interviews at the board's discretion. And then we would have an executive session and vote on December 1st. The public notice seeking candidates for consideration, again, on the 21st. The notice would describe the main work of the board and its members. The notice will include a statement of general eligibility. The notice will request board vacancy applicants submit a resume and answers to 4 questions. The questions would be, why do you want to fill this vacancy and how do you think you can best contribute to the work of the board during the vacancy? Explain your understanding of the roles and responsibilities and time commitments of a board member. It would ask, are you familiar with the board's bylaws and the work of the board? Have you ever attended a board meeting? And it would ask the candidate to explain your understanding and familiarity with the school's budget and the budget process and what your budgeting experience is. The notice would direct applicants to submit to the Board of Ed directly with a copy to Lucille. It would inform candidates that the board reserves the right to interview finalists after submission, and that what our timing is on executive session and voting. and would also inform the candidates that, that this would be a public process, so the names of all candidates would be public.
Ruth, what were your dates again?
I'm doing dates of calling for a vote on December 1st. I'd like to leave time for an unforeseen emergency. It gives us a week.
So Deb resigned officially on the 11th of November, which is a Sunday, according to our
No,
bylaws.
that's a Friday.
The 11th of December?
The 11th of November.
Right.
Okay.
But the 11th of December is a Sunday, so does that give us till the 12th or till
No,
the 9th?
To the 9th. And so I'd like to leave that work week for any type of unforeseen emergency. So if there's a motion on that, I would like a motion for that to be the process.
So just have one comment first. If you're not submitting this till the 21st, can you share with all of us what you just read so we have some time to digest it and
Yeah,
make a
I agree.
suggestion to change or to add or?
Can you send that in an
Well,
email?
I'd like to get it to the press tomorrow so they can publish on Monday morning.
Can you just walk through your dates?
Send it to us tonight and we'll take a look at it.
Sure, is then there any way that we can convene a session?
Just say the dates again. So
Okay.
that-
Those are the dates.
we can just wrap our head around the dates.
Sure. The notice would go out Monday, the 21st. So I would send everything out for publication on Friday, for publication Monday morning. There would then be a full week for submission, which would be November 28th at noon. That brings us to have the following week to receive the submissions and at our discretion can ask for finalists for interviews. And it would give us then an executive session before our regular meeting on December 1st.
So the finalists, are we arriving at a final, are we?
Well, I feel as though the reason why I set it up with the questions is that it provides for equal footing.
Yeah.
It gives us a tool to assess
Yeah,
candidates
because there are criteria.
and a criteria. It also, I think, imparts the work of the board and the time, gives candidates the ability to look to see what the work of the board is and assess their own ability to have the time to do that. And then we'll see, it gives us the flexibility to then, for finalists, and to request interviews if needed, depending on what the submissions are. And then we already have the regular meeting on the calendar of the 1st. And we can add an executive session before that.
Okay.
And what were your questions that you're asking?
Why do you want to fill a vacancy? And how do you think you can best contribute to the work of the board during the vacancy? Explain your understanding of the roles and responsibilities and time commitments of a board member. Are you familiar with the board's bylaws and the work of the board? Have you ever attended a board meeting? And to explain your understanding and familiarity with the school's budget and the budget process. And what is your budgeting experience?
Yeah, I'm just thinking none of us were asked that question, but,
But this is not an election.
right, no, I get it.
Yeah.
It's just, I'm just wrapping my head around that.
Yeah, I think that's an important distinction, that, we have a set of work before us, and,
Which I think is great, which also really goes to how important it is to open it up to people, because it's a lot of work, and
yeah.
it's.
And so I think that these help us evaluate, the candidates before us. We are charged with filling the vacancy and not charged with, running
Yeah.
kind of our own election.
My only thought, Ruth, is with the holiday, could we potentially have until like the 5th and have an executive session the night of the 5th, just to give us some wiggle room and those who are traveling? So if the 5th is a Monday, maybe we plan like an executive session on the 5th, which gives us the 1st and 2nd to conduct interviews if needed. And that still gives us 4 days of, as you mentioned, unforeseen circumstances.
So you're saying, I'm sorry, I just.
I'm saying maybe, I'm looking at a calendar, your proposal was have something decided by the 1st, which is a Thursday night. I'm saying, could we just plan an executive session on like the 5th or the 6th, which is a Monday or Tuesday, because of the holiday, and it still gives us 4 days.
I think if it's okay with you, I'd like to kind of keep with the calendar the way it is, knowing that we have, if there's a flurry of submissions and, you know, if we decided our discretion to interview finalists, then we have the room on the back end. But to be able to.
Yeah, I'm just more thinking the holidays for everyone involved.
Well, I think that,
Why don't we see how many we get?
why don't we see how many we get?
Why don't we do this? We'll plan on the 1st, but if we get lots of applications, then we can be flexible enough to decide on the 5th or 6th that we'll meet then.
So I guess my question is then the date the applications are due.
That's the bigger question.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So
Instead of making it the Monday after Thanksgiving, could we make it the Tuesday or Wednesday after Thanksgiving to give people time? Which then would push us back. That's the only reason I was saying that, Pam.
Right, we're now notifying people the week of Thanksgiving.
Right, the Monday of
So some
Thanksgiving.
people are already out, right? Some people are already out for half days, some people are already
Mentally
checked
and
out.
So, I mean, if everybody's okay, I can try to get it published tomorrow. I just don't, you know, I'm concerned about the time.
That's
Isn't
why
the
I'm just
time on us,
asking
though?
for one day. Like, instead of, what's your date that you want to do, the 28th?
So if you wanted to do it, submissions back on the 29th, and I would still say, let's keep our meeting on the 1st, and if we need to, then we can
Yeah,
Push it out.
we can change it.
that
So,
would
but I
be
can
my.
say, you know, but I would say noon on the 29th.
Keeping in mind that we have a long-range planning meeting on the 30th.
Yes, I know. And there's also a negotiation set on that day.
So
which is why I
custodians are
wanted to have
negotiating.
which is why I wanted the Tuesday.
Yeah.
I think the Tuesday, the 29th is more,
I think that if someone's really interested in doing it, they can find the hour to put it together.
well, it depends on what their family needs are for Thanksgiving, but I agree.
But there's Thanksgiving, I mean, even our kids are still even at school, and, you know, I just think that.
So if you could get it out to tomorrow to the press,
Right.
and then say they're due on
Keep it Monday.
the 20,
I think I'd like to get it out then to the press tomorrow and keep it.
oh, I thought
On
you just said
Monday.
you'd be open till Tuesday at noon.
Well, given that we have those other things on Wednesday night.
But I'm thinking more the applicants versus us. So if the applicants can do it Tuesday on the 29th, and then we have,
But if I get it out to the press tomorrow, then the applicants have this weekend as well.
I don't mind it going out tomorrow as long as we can sit on it tonight in terms of the questions. And I'm only asking because you've had plenty of time to think about this and you just made up all the questions and now we're sitting here listening to all of it and being asked to make a decision and to vote on it and to pass it through. So I'm just asking if we really want to get it out tomorrow, that's fine. I'd love some time tonight to just think about it and maybe think about some other questions. Maybe those are the only ones, but just to think about some possible other questions that, you know, maybe are important to me about somebody else coming in and fulfilling a position.
Okay.
that's a good point.
So, can we at least say that we're on the dates?
Yeah.
Mm?
So I'm just wondering, it can probably be in the press, like an article could go out on Friday or Saturday, let's say. So we could have until, I mean, I would like to look at the questions too.
What's our option in terms of publicizing this? Is it only Good Morning Wilton?
No, it would go in the bulletin, it would go in the patch.
Okay. But it's all public and not,
You can post a notice on the website if you like.
Post a notice on the website.
We can,
On the Wilton Public School website.
sure.
okay.
Can we get the town to use their email service to push it out?
Can we post it on the town website?
We'd have to ask the town.
Do you want me to ask?
We might as well.
I just feel like if we're going to do all this, we might as well make sure that we are
Okay.
sending it to everybody the right way and giving everybody the opportunity.
And we're all
Otherwise, it's a lot
represented
of
with our
work for-
questions and needs.
Yeah.
So Ruth, maybe we target the 19th for publication. And the 29th at noon for resumes due, or applications due.
No, I'd really like to stick, I think, the 28th. I'd like to have the week, being that the board has other things going on Wednesday. And,
I wish we had seen these questions earlier, it would have been great to, but I understand it's not your fault. I'm just,
She's trying to pull a lot together.
I'm trying
I
to,
know.
yeah.
No, I know.
I'm trying to make it work.
They're open-ended enough.
I feel like they're open-ended enough, they cover the work. I was just,
I think my point though is like we're supposed to be a board, right? It's supposed to be everybody's input, and right now it's feeling like it's one person's input, and now we're supposed to be saying yay or nay to it without having any time to digest.
no, I'm
and
happy
make
to,
comments.
I think that in general, when I put this together, I felt like we were a board and I put a memo out and no one discussed it with me ahead of time either.
You and I spoke about this.
Yeah, but I
We
put
can
the
talk
memo
outside
out.
of the meeting.
I put the memo out, and if there had been another idea, it would have been nice to have some
Well,
more time.
I'll just say I had
But
no
when you
idea
and
there was
I-
even a memo or that we had even had.
It
Did you
was
ask
with the board
Glenn, too?
materials.
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
didn't, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that I don't look at all the board materials every week as much as I should.
Yeah.
Did you ask Glenn also?
What? No, I did not. And there's, let me see. So, I'm just trying to put it together in a way that really does, I think, facilitate the public search that respects our 30 days and, does place the candidates on equal footing. So that was my intention with the questions. I think they're pretty straightforward. I'm happy to send them to everybody.
Thanks.
I'm fine with the questions. Why don't you guys take some time tonight to look at them? And then email Ruth and say, I would like this one added, or this one taken out, or I'm not okay with that, just so that give them an hour or two to just kind of look at it?
Yeah, no, and that's fine. I think overall,
Just so that you have the time.
Out of respect for everybody's time, applicants included, I think that we should limit them to about 5. But that's my own thought on that.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so I think we have then, barring the questions aside, we're settled on the dates, correct?
Can you go through them once more, what we decided on?
That the public notice would go out on the 19th?
Or the 18th, if you can get it out
I mean, I'd
earlier.
like you and Jen asked for that, I don't want to
Yeah.
push you.
No, but if we, yeah.
If you could, that would be wonderful, if I could get it out
Mm-hmm.
tomorrow. And then submission of applications, the 28th at noon. And reserving the right to interview finalists the week of the 28th, with an executive session and a vote on December 1st, with the caveat of, if we need more time, then
Push it
we'll reassess with each other.
And you also had a caveat of having an executive session prior to the 1st, didn't you say that at one point as well?
No, that it would be before our meeting. I mean, you can have an executive session to discuss candidates.
Right.
Provided at any time, but I was thinking that.
And the 1st is our meeting, so.
The 1st is our meeting, so we would just schedule some, at 6, give us an hour before our meeting.
Okay, and if needed, we could push it back.
Depending on, the volume and
Yep.
what happens.
Yeah. Maybe executive session at 5:30.
Yeah.
As long as we have flexibility to push it back as needed, I'm fine with that.
Okay.
And you said noon on the 28th?
Yeah.
could we consider 5 PM on the 28th, or?
Sure, we
Let's
can
just do that,
Yeah.
to give everyone a full day.
That's fine. Okay, so I'll go home and send you the questions. I'll send them to everybody, so everybody has them. Pam and Nicole, you've indicated that I shouldn't, that you're okay?
I'm going to forward you guys also the timeline that I sent already, that I'll resend.
But there is agreement, should we, on this timeline? For just looking at future business, we have long-range planning on the 30th. Then there will be, we'll block in an executive session on the December 1st. So if everyone just wants to hold their calendar for that. If we could do 5:30, great. Then there'll be the regular, and there'll be the, following that executive session, there'll be the organizational meeting and then the regular meeting. So within the next week, I'll also send out a current list of committee assignments, et cetera, that we currently have. So everyone, we don't need to decide it at the organizational meeting, but if people just want to start thinking about where their interests may or may not lie. And then we have the meeting on the December 15th, a regular meeting. We're going to be scheduling community conversation around the budget, similar to how we did last year. And then there'll be, again, a regular meeting on the 12th, and that will be January the 12th, we do the budget presentation.
That's correct. I'll present a budget, so
Yeah.
that's instead of the 19th.
What time is the long-range planning?
I think it's scheduled for 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Yeah, and it'll go, it won't be more than 2 hours. That's going to be a good night.
Yeah. We'll come off the custodians and then we'll go to,
We're going to spend a lot of time together.
Kevin, how do you define good night?
I'm a
little
nerd,
worried.
a total
I'm a little
nerd. Listen, we're going to celebrate a little long-range, Porch of the Grudge, because we've done some good work, and we're going to use this night to, for the purpose of the committee, to start thinking, about some big pictures.
So you're saying 2 hours, is that what you said?
Yeah, it won't be more. We won't go more than 2 hours. And go ahead, sorry.
As well as a community conversation on the budget, could we entertain the idea of having just a general community conversation on whatever our community wants to talk with us about? Westport have done one this week, and I think it would be nice to hear what people have got to say.
Yeah, I mean, we can, if that's the board's desire, we can set it up any way you like. So I would like to ask some questions about the budget, since it's looming.
Yeah, so maybe.
Perhaps, maybe, yeah, but we
Yeah.
can certainly.
And there's just on that note, not to take a lot of time here, but there's we want to think about the format too. So as we were talking to some of the PTA presidents, they wondered about format. So in the past, we've scheduled an hour before a board meeting, and that's been sparsely attended over the years. So I think we want to look at trying a couple of different opportunities. So maybe something hybrid or all remote, and just invite people in different ways, just to open up access.
Can I ask a question about the organizational meeting? Can you share, I'm going to direct the question to you.
Sure.
When we talk about officers, what is the policy in terms of how officers are elected?
Yeah, I'll send you the bylaw. So the bylaw on the organizational meeting spells it out. And so I think you've probably lived through it a couple of times, but there's nominations, there's vote, and then if there are multiple nominations, there's votes and seconds, and then it just proceeds from chair on. But I think the bylaws actually explain it clear, so I want to put that out to everybody, and if you want, you can send questions back to it. If I can answer them, I will. If not, we'll kick them to Jessica.
Okay. I think that part I understand. My thought was, my first 2 years on the board, I was told who the chairs would be and who I should be approving. last year I was told what position I would hold, or people would like me to hold. And then we all voted on that. And I'm just wondering if there's a way to change kind of how that all runs. Like, it would be nice for people to, be able to share if maybe somebody else wants to, hold a position.
Sure.
It would be
I don't
nice
run that,
for-
by the way.
I just thought maybe it's a conversation for all of us then. I mean, it would be nice for people to be able to say, hey, I would like to have this position and this is why.
Yeah.
Versus
This is what
somebody
you're
getting a
doing.
phone call and saying, hey, I want this position and I would like your support, or this is who I anticipate the officers being and I would like you all to support them.
Yep.
I just think it's a backwards way to go about finding who, should be here. That's all. I think it's just a more open process. Again, I feel like everybody here was elected to a position and everybody should be able to share why they want a specific position over another one, or they don't want a position at all. But just something to think about.
The bylaw, I think the directions are.
Says nothing about it.
Yeah, but
Other
it
than-
does say, it stipulates the procedure, and so if you follow the procedure, that should allow for what you're describing.
I think you're saying like outside of the bylaws, like what happens before and after the talking. I agree.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, if it's possible, like during that time, like if people want to be a certain position, maybe they can share why. Or if they don't want to be a certain position, share why. I mean, I think my only thing I would like is for whoever's talking that they talk about themselves. It's not about why I think I can do a better job than Mandy, or, right, I've seen enough of that in the elections and you should be able to run on your own 2 feet. And
We can talk about why you can do a better job than me, Jen. Agreed.
Just food for thought, but I know we can't really discuss things online, so I don't know how to ever actually have a conversation about it.
I know, Kevin, that is just bringing that up, I don't want to drag this on, but like, it is hard when we can't discuss things online, and we can only discuss things like when there's like this
Yeah.
void.
It's called FOIA.
So
know.
the-
But I mean, it's like a void that, it would
Yeah.
almost be nice to have a meeting before our meeting to discuss what we're going to discuss about
Right.
it.
You certainly
Here's-
can, it has to be an agenda item.
That's
in
what I'm saying,
public.
like, could we,
So, I'm not sure what you're asking for.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
so the, before, I guess we can't because it's December 1st, but it'd be great to have a meeting, like, on the agenda tonight to discuss about the organizational meeting and who wants to be what.
So the options would be these. We can, somewhere between now and then, if that's what the board wants, we can schedule another meeting, and that can be, the
Agenda
review and
topic.
discuss
Yep.
procedure for organizational meeting.
Yeah.
And we can review the bylaws, and you can have a conversation about how you want to flow. You can do that in the organizational meeting as well. You can just, you can't do it, you can set a meeting before the organizational meeting, right? So that's,
That
because
has
the
to
organizational
begin
meeting is
and
run by its own bylaws.
Yeah.
That would be a separate agenda item,
Yeah, so the bylaws are specific about how you change the bylaws,
right?
and they're also.
And would this be changing the bylaws? I'm not saying changing the bylaws, I'm just saying have an agenda item before the actual organizational meeting to discuss, really just to share who wants to run for what position and why.
I think that certainly can be explored, but we just would have to, look at how it would.
So we have to have a meeting and then end that meeting and then start the organizational
So
meeting.
the organizational meeting is its own thing, and it's run by a bylaw of the board. And
Right.
so to do anything outside, it requires a separate agenda. And that's, if you go back to the last several organizational meetings, you have the organizational meeting, then we kind of adjourn to a regular meeting.
Yep.
So this would be,
An additional,
yeah, it's all procedural, it's not a big deal.
yeah.
I feel like even if it doesn't happen before this one, I just
Yeah.
think
But
moving
I
forward.
think that
there should be a
the
check.
conversation, I think, is a good one to have when we start talking about doing things like this. I just think of making sure we do it intentionally and kind of well thought out, knowing that what we do has effects for boards down the line as well, and to be able to take the time to really consider process and how it should be done. So that's where I kind of hesitate a little bit. But I definitely think that the bylaws, according to the bylaws, should be reviewed on a every 5 years.
Yeah.
And so it's hitting that time. So I think that it's something to, for all of us to think about.
In the meantime, I'll send you, just so you have it, so you can just review the procedure.
My only other question is about ELA. What's the deal with the December 16th?
December 16th was a date floated some months ago, but a lot's changed since then. And so right now, with the State Department of Education, we're waiting for a revised waiver application. I was on a call with the commissioner and a group of superintendents across the state probably 4 weeks ago at this point, and it sounded like they were preparing to release a new one, and she had committed it was going to be the following week. They have gotten some additional feedback about concerns with that law, and so consequently, we haven't seen anything yet. So we've been in a waiting pattern, but I have slated on my calendar for December 15th to have Chuck and Karen come and just walk everybody through kind of what the law is, what the questions are, and there are serious questions about that new reading law. And then where we are and how we have been responding, even in advance of that new piece of legislation, to some of the science of reading questions, because we've made some pretty significant changes in our early literacy program that I think speaks to the questions and concerns that have developed over time. So we'll do just a full debrief on that, and then if we get a waiver application between now and then, we'll just update everybody about where we are and what the status is.
Okay, thanks.
So having concluded all our business, I call this meeting adjourned.
Should I do comments from class?
Oh, sorry, public, thank you. Are there any public comments? Concluding all our business, meeting is adjourned at 9:02.
All right.
Well done, Rose. Your
You
first
got
review.
through it. Yes. It's different when you're running the agenda, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's not easy.
Nope.